live from around the web and around the world. You can even prove it by chatting underneath the live stream. Just go ahead and add your comment if you have something intelligent or related to what we're talking about, a question, something like that. Just type it under the stream, and just keep in mind that the comment tracker does have some delay on it, so we'll keep an eye on it and try to get to your comments as they come. Jeremiah is out for the night. I'm Ryan from Hammer the Gods. Tonight we also have Jesse from Coping with Illness and Disability Without Faith, Dave, also from Hammer the Gods, and we've got Corey from Militant Atheism. So tonight we're going to be discussing basically our deconversion stories and just sort of a little bit of history about, what our experience with religion was when we were growing up, what experiences we had as we were deconverting, experiences with family, what that whole process was like, and we'll also talk about some new atheist tips to see what, just talk about things that might be able to help support the community and other people who are working through the process of finding non-belief, moving out of their belief, and dealing with family, friends, and coworkers in that process. So with that, we'll get started here, and I'll just ask a basic question and just go down the line, starting with Corey. I want to know, were you guys ever theists? How long were you raised as a theist?
Is that it?
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
okay.
the first part of the question, and we'll get a little bit more into it at that, but I just wanted to get everybody's take first on that.
All right. Well, yeah, I was raised with a belief in God, not really had it hammered down my throat. And when I was a teenager, I started, seeing, hey, this isn't right, like a lot of inconsistency, stuff like that. And that drew me into atheism. And then after my early 20s, I became like fundamentalist Christian kind of person that trolls atheist pages and all that fun stuff. And that lasted for about a year until I realized yet again it was bullshit. And it drew me deeper into atheism, and here I am.
Very good.
I probably, for the first 20 years of my life, was a loose believer. Family never really took us to church except for weddings and funerals. Roman Catholic would probably be the denomination, if anything. For 20 years, I probably pretty much just believed whatever I was told, and then things didn't make sense, and from then on, I was still a believer, but I just didn't get into the details. I was just like, yeah, I believe in God, but whatever. I didn't get into the details, and then several years ago, I couldn't do that anymore. All these thoughts kept happening to me, and I started to realize that, gee, I should have good reasons for what I believe.
Yeah, my experience was that I was loosely raised Christian. It wasn't really forced down my throat as I was growing up. It just sort of, my grandma went to church regularly, and other people, especially on my mother's side, were a lot more regular church attendees and things like that. And I knew my folks were pretty religious before or about the time I was born, and I had always grown up under the assumption, I just had thought that I was baptized as a baby, and so I had done the Christianity thing loosely, attending church more often at certain times and then not so much at other times. When I was about 16, I sort of got out of Christianity for a little bit and dabbled in Wicca, and did that for probably about a year and a half or so. And then that just sort of fell away. I ended up moving back to the mainland and got back in with the community of Christians, became more involved in the church in the following years. Came to the point where it just struck me one day. I asked my mother if indeed I had been baptized as a baby. She told me I wasn't. So I was like, well, damn, I better get right with Jesus. I want to do this right. So I started studying the Bible more and wanted to, be baptized as biblically as possible, so to speak. So I did that in a natural body of water. And sometime, not too long after that, I started feeling like I was being called to preach the gospel, to bring people to Christ. And so in that process of considering attending seminary and becoming a pastor and leading and counseling the flock, so to speak, I wanted to really know what the hell I was talking about. I didn't want to lead anybody astray and accidentally send them to hell because I didn't know my stuff. And so I started studying more and praying a lot more, and I started being more active in the church again. And I think it was somewhat ironic that this path of trying to understand, these things and be able to speak with a position of authority led me to learn more about basically apologetics and counter-apologetics and counter-apologetics and search for the evidence for and against the different claims and why one position was right or wrong. I wanted to be able to justify my beliefs as true and actually,
How dare you?
know that they were founded, right? And so, somewhat ironically, I suppose, this long process led me to actually come to the conclusion that my beliefs, my Christian beliefs, were totally unfounded. And it was a pretty quick process for me from belief and praying before every meal and before bed and usually several times a day and all of that stuff to realizing these things and then learning more about, how different religions affect the world and the harm that it does. That I moved from theism to, firebrand atheism, let's say, quite quickly in that process. So that's generally my experience, and we can get into some more details with hopefully everybody later. But Jesse, what was your experience like?
I grew up Church of Christ, not Latter-day Saints. Just you go to church and you're female and you have to wear a dress or a skirt. There was no Sunday school, so the kids sat in the main service and we all sat at the very back set of pews and had to be quiet. But in my immediate family, my parents, my brother and sister and I, my parents didn't really force it on us, at least religion as a whole. I mean, we went to church every Sunday until I was about 10 or 12, somewhere around there. But we didn't have to read the Bible. We didn't have to do, anything like that. I didn't actually read any parts of the Bible until I was a teenager. And, but we kind of stopped going to church. The story I was told is that people got mad at my dad for playing the guitar at one of his cousin's funerals. Because you're not supposed to play any musical instruments other than a piano or an organ. So he got into some shit with other members of the church for having played the guitar and singing Red River Valley at one of his cousin's funerals. So I didn't go to I'd never set foot in a Sunday school until I was about 10. And it was just really weird for my brother and sister and I, because all these other kids in Sunday school all know what the Sunday school teacher's talking about because their parents have made them read the Bible, and we're just sitting there going, I don't know. Because, these other kids our age and younger that are listing off Bible verses and whatnot, and they know exactly what book it is, and we're just like, derp. We didn't go to that church for very long enough, luckily. But the way my family was growing up, we didn't get the hellfire and brimstone. We got the God is love and everything happens for a reason, and in a lot of ways that made deconverting more difficult for me. But when we got older, because I was used to the concept of the Bible was written by men and therefore it's going to have a lot of bullshit in it.
Okay.
And so it made it harder to get past the whole ingrained, it's all about love, it's all about taking care of each other, and that, because that's how it was taught to me. And so I didn't want to give up that love.
Right.
It was never the fear of hell. I never dealt with that at all. It was all about love, and that's what I was taught all growing up, is that God is love.
Yeah. And maybe we can talk
And
about that. Sorry to interrupt just for a second, Jesse, and maybe we can talk about that a little bit later, guys, if you want to remind me. Is sort of not having to leave certain things behind. A lot of family and friends, coworkers might think that when we decide or realize that we no longer believe in God, they automatically assume we're all of a sudden immoral and evil and gone off the deep end and going to start going buck nutty. And some people, I think, like you were saying, Jesse, have the perception that, we have to like get rid of everything. And we don't have to get rid of that love and, the wonder and mystery of the universe and things like that. When we deconvert, a lot of those things I think are inherently part of us as people and not really so much a part of the religion. But even if it did, if you gained something positive from the religion while you're there, you can take the good parts along with you and just leave all the bullshit and the fairy tale stuff behind. Keep the merry, leave the myth sort of thing. But I want to, sorry, you had something more to say, Jesse?
yes.
Sorry, go ahead.
There's more. There's more. Because, okay, we got homeschooled from 8th grade till I graduated. So in order to find friends, when my brother got his driver's license, we started going to churches. And we started going to youth groups, not Sunday schools, and, evening youth group sessions and whatnot. And that's when I pretty much became the I'm not religious, I love the Lord type of Christian. I'm not religious, I love Jesus.
Right.
Because every church we went to, because we went to 4 or 5 different churches over like a 3-year span. And they were all always welcoming of us and loving and whatnot until they realized they weren't going to change who we were. And then we got turned on, especially the kids, because unlike them, we could leave whenever we wanted to. Our parents weren't in the main service. We could, if the youth pastor pissed us off, we could leave. And that's when, it wasn't until we started going to youth groups that I started reading the Bible, and I'm like, this is fucked up, and this is fucked up, and this is fucked up. But I'd already been told that, well, you've got to remember that the Bible was written by man, and sometimes they get things wrong, but, the core of it's still good. And I'm reading through, like, Job left me devastated. That whole book was just, like, so wrong. But I stopped going to church after that. We hit our run of youth groups, and we're like, okay, we're not going to do this anymore. We're just going to like go try and find people to meet, to hang out with, and make friends with, but we're not going to do the whole church thing anymore. And so, the last time I actively went to church, I was 16 or 17. I think 16.
Okay. And so that's, it seems like all of us here did the religion thing for pretty much at least the first half of our lives. Would you say that's, and maybe even longer, would you say that's a fair assessment, guys?
Longer in my case.
Yeah. And when in that period was the first time you read the Bible all the way through? Jesse, you said you were 16, 17, I think, when you first read the Bible all the way through. And what about
14?
14. And what about for you guys?
I was actually well into atheism before I read it all the way through.
Yeah. And
it was during my time as, again, for lack of better terminology, a fundamentalist Christian.
Okay. So was that how close in time before I guess the question is, do you think that reading the Bible all the way through for the first time had anything to do with your deconversion? What effect did reading the Bible all the way through have on you in that process? Any, if any?
You talking to me or all of
Yeah,
us?
well, go ahead first, Corey, since you're last there. Go ahead.
No, actually. By that time, I was so far into Jesus that, it was all about Jesus, and this is Jesus' word. Oh, Jesus. And I didn't even think twice about, the story of Jonah living in a big fish. I didn't second guess that because there was that underlying fear that if you second guess something, you're pretty much committing, the one unforgivable sin. So, and that's the point that I was going to make later on. So it's not bringing it off topic. So remind me about that.
Sure. And for you, Dave, you said that you were already an atheist for a while by the time you read it all the way through?
Well, that's before I read it cover to cover. I read big sections of it long before that. But I never really sat down to read it cover to cover. I think partly because, like I said, very early on, I was not like a real Bible believer. It was just, oh, God is good and God loves me, and I didn't get into the details, so I didn't want to get into the details.
Sort of more like cultural Christianity, a cultural
Yep.
Christian, if you will. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, for me, I think I was around 20 or 21 the first time that I read it all the way through, and I think I was sort of had a bit of that of Corey's experience where it's like, okay, this is the Word of God, and this is in the phase that I'm, considering going to seminary and stuff. And so I'm trying to take it in and sort of rationalize it and believe it, but at the same time I was also kind of dumbfounded by several of the things that I read through, and like, wow, I did not even know this was in here. What the heck is going on with this? It did cause me to stumble up, a little bit, because it just sort of boggled the mind of not only how some aspects of it were totally nonsensical, they didn't match up with other parts, but it just caused a lot of other different questions in me that I had to, talk to priests and, pastors and stuff to try to, family members to try to sort, what does this mean? How does this, fit with this other thing? How does this really work out here? It just brought up a lot of new questions, and I think that it did sort of play a part in my deconversion, going forward, was reading the entire Bible. So I want to talk about for a second. There's an author that our viewers may have heard of. His name is David G. McAfee, and he's got a really good book called Mom, Dad, I'm an Atheist, The Guide to Coming Out as a Non-Believer. And you can find it on Amazon. I believe that it was Dogma Debate also did an audiobook version that you should be able to find on YouTube, or iTunes, or audible.com, I believe. So check that out. David G. McAfee, Mom, Dad, I'm an Atheist, The Guide to Coming Out as a Non-Believer. And I've read the book. I recommend it both for people who are doubting, people who are newly atheists, people who have been atheists for a long time even, or if you are a friend or family member of someone who is a doubting or agnostic or an atheist. I believe it was around 170 pages. It's been a while since I read it. It's not terribly long. It's a really pretty smooth read, but it really goes into a lot of different gentle ways and really, I think, helpful points that he makes in the process of the book, just for people to sort of work their way through some of the likely hurdles. And so there's an article that he had written, David G. McAfee had written for the Richard Dawkins Foundation for Reason and Science, 7 tips for coming out as an atheist. And I wanted to touch on some of those there, but one of them talks about how just recognizing that it is an ongoing process, that coming out as a non-believer is not a one-off sort of issue. It's something that you have to deal with on a regular basis with, maybe it's other friends or family that didn't know, or, new coworkers or a new job, somebody that you newly meet, that it is an ongoing process, both in having to sort of justify yourself, if you will, to other people, but it's also an internal ongoing process. And so I wanted to talk with you guys a little bit first, sort of how I see the 2 aspects of this being an ongoing process. First, what was it like internally for you? And I'm going to start with Corey in a second here. What was it like internally for you, this process? How long did it take from the point where you were steadfast or on the edge of doubt and disbelief to the point where you were, okay, I can't believe this anymore? And what was that transition like for you? Was it difficult? How long did it last?
Well, yes, it was difficult, and you're actually giving me this chance to touch on the subject that I was going to touch on earlier. It lasted about a month and a half. And there was that that doubt that started to creep up again. But one of the biggest hurdles that I experienced was that fear of doubting. Like, what if I doubt this? And because this is real, God is real. What if I start to doubt Him, and He, little birdie tells him about it, and then boom, I'm going to hell. Like, what's going to happen? I'm committing this ultimate sin by doubting. So there was that fear that I had to overcome more than anything else. And what actually pushed me over the edge, aside from my pastor being a dumbass, what actually pushed me over the edge was going on Netflix and watching The God Who Wasn't There, which is a very good documentary.
Yes.
And it also touches on that fear of doubting.
Yeah.
And it pointed out several things that I wasn't even aware of for my previous time as an atheist. And that's what finally pushed me over the edge, and I was like, what, screw this. He's right. I was right before all this crap, before I became a Christian and all that fun stuff. Why did I do this? Why did I do that? I kind of felt like I got cheated. I got cheated out of a year of my life that I could have used to, make my life better versus just sitting back and praying for it.
Yeah.
But like I said, I really want to harp on that fear.
Were you also raised with the notion that hell is a real literal place as well? Did that weigh into the fear, this doubt fear that you had, or?
Like I said, my mother never really pushed it on me. She just said, she affirmed that God was real, and which is kind of funny because every church I used to go to as a kid, I used to get kicked out of because I was too rowdy or too this, too that. But the prospect of hell when I first became an atheist before becoming a fundamentalist, it wasn't really a thing because I was in high school. I had other things on my mind, save for hell, and it was just more of, I can't believe this shit anymore.
So, if I may, what was your fear that you had when you were dealing with these fears of having the doubts? What did you think might happen if you doubted too much?
That I would spend an eternity away from God, that I would spend an eternity burning, I would, do all this fun stuff. Because, taken loosely or taken literally, blasphemy is a very broad term. It's either speaking out against, which you can loosely take doubting something's existence as going against it. So that one speck of doubt, boom, you've committed the one ultimate sin that is unforgivable in the eyes of Jesus. And that's the fear that I had to overcome, is that, there's nothing to fear. And until I actually realized that, I broke free.
Yeah,
Before
you
that,
don't fear the hell in other religions.
no, no, no.
Yeah, that's a big point. Is that, as believers, we never fear the afterlife of, other religions that are claimed to exist, these other afterlives.
We don't
and
fear the
and
wrath of Mithra.
and as we're transitioning out of theism, we have to keep in mind that once we get to the stage where we're looking at our beliefs as myth, we need to be okay with letting go of that fear of hell, because once we realize that this is just myth like all of the others that we never feared the hell of, we should stop giving special privilege to our former beliefs, that we no longer have to carry that fear of the mythical hell that we used to believe in. We don't have to fear that anymore. Don't give it any special privilege over the afterlives of other religions, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And I really I get the idea of that. It's an ongoing process. It's not a single time when you suddenly, I just woke up and I'm an atheist. That's not how it happened for me. Well into my teens, when I was younger, I started worrying that not all of the Bible was not true, like not all of it's true, and so the way I dealt with that was by not dealing in details, and so that worked for a long time, and then eventually there was a process. And the process, when I finally said, I have to decide what I believe. I think till I would call myself an atheist till I actually said, I remember the day, I remember where I lived, and when I said I was an atheist. And it was probably a year. It was probably a good year and a lot of the help was reading audio books and YouTube. The God Delusion, especially on audiobook, and YouTube of Chris Hitchens, Sam Harris, all the Four Horsemen, right? And I just couldn't find fault in their reasoning. They're right.
And was this, how difficult would you say this process was for you? How long did it last?
Well, like I said, it probably took a year from when I really decided I need to decide what I believe, but it wasn't all intense effort or anything else like that.
Sure.
It happened right during a time in my life when I was dealing with a breakup with my wife, so it was that got in the way of it a bunch. I don't think that impacted a whole lot on a relationship, but it's possible because she's still a believer. I still
I
have.
got lucky. My husband and I deconverted at the same time.
That's amazing. I don't blame our breakup on atheism at all, because I think it was ending anyway. But
And I think maybe what a lot of viewers might have as a question is, would you say that the breakup in any way contributed to your disbelief?
no, I think it just took up time that I couldn't spend checking out what I needed to read, what I needed to watch.
Right. Because a lot of people, the common diatribe, like, oh, something bad just happened, you're mad at God, sort of thing. Why is this happening? No,
No, that really doesn't apply to me. I've had a lot of bad things and a bunch of good things happen to me in my life, and belief never really played a role in any of that.
Fair enough. Yeah, for me it was, I would say that it was a pretty smooth, pretty fast process, I think, relative to what I understand a lot of other people have in their transition out of theism.
Oh,
Some people it drags on for 5-10 years. It's a very difficult and ongoing thing for them. I think, I'm not sure exactly why. I guess I was just able to reconcile, carrying that my personal model of reality is as close to our known demonstrable model of reality as possible, caring if my beliefs are true and wanting to be able to justify them, and for whatever reason, just being able to, pretty quickly be able to reconcile or transition my beliefs with the facts and with logic, and sort of get them, I don't think that they're overlapping lines, because we all have biases and perception and things like that, so I think that it would be more like parallel lines rather than overlapped lines, but I think, for me, it probably took maybe a month and a half or 2 months from the time where, I was praying every day, multiple times a day, praying at night, praying before meals, reading the Bible, things like that, to the point where I just could not. It wasn't that I didn't want to believe. I think similar to you, Dave and Corey, I think I had the experience where, if anything, I was also dealing with sort of a will to believe, a desire to believe, and that's where a lot of the troubles with my doubts and stuff came early on, is that I probably wanted to believe more than I didn't want to believe. It's not that I didn't want to believe in God. I wasn't angry at God or anything like that. I just, reading the stories, realizing how much the arguments for the existence of God didn't make sense, that there wasn't any evidence behind it, seeing what the arguments were on the other side, seeing the harm that came from religion in the world, I moved rather quickly, I would say, from my state of belief to, being a firebrand atheist, and the position that all of these things, that religion does far more harm than good in the world, and it's all based on claims that are demonstrably untrue or can't be proven to be true. And I just could no longer force myself to believe, even if I wanted to believe at that point. I couldn't do it. So that was kind of what it was like for me.
Well, belief isn't a choice. A lot of believers think that you can choose to believe something, and
right.
to me that's just false. And you can prove it by just go up on top of a 10-story building and stand on the edge and make yourself believe that gravity doesn't work.
Yeah.
Choose that.
I can fly.
Right.
Yeah.
There's something in the comments here. Viper mentioned something that's actually a very damn good point about keeping you in the belief in that, or one thing that may prevent you from making the transition or the deconversion, if you will, is the desire, or the desire. I can't think of the other word, but I guess we'll use desire for now, is to see a loved one.
Yeah.
Yep, that was mine.
So was your deconversion real painful for you, Jesse?
Yes and no. It was a long time coming in one sense, and in the other, it only took about a day. One night, I should say, because it was years and years of my reason battling with my indoctrination.
Right.
It was I want to see my dad. I want to see my brother. I want to see my cousins and my aunts and my uncles. And then, hey, look, science. But honestly, my last straw, my full deconversion, took one night. It took one night, about 3 days after my 31st birthday, of my daughter coming to me crying in the middle of the night to tell me that she wished she'd never been born, because she thought my being sick was her fault. And that is when science won. because I could not believe in any kind of benevolent deity that would allow an innocent child to wish herself dead.
And
And that's the deity I was raised with. What's a benevolent one, a loving one, a protecting one, a caring one. And my child was shooting at the wall.
And just for the viewers, maybe you could talk a little bit about, I know you've told us before, Jesse, but for the viewers, maybe you could talk a little bit about why your daughter thought that, wish she was dead. What led to her feeling that way?
I got sick a year and a half after we moved to Iowa. And 4.5 years later, I'm still undiagnosed. At that time, I'd only been sick for a little over a year. Still no end in sight at that time. And she thought it was because we moved here, and we moved here to give her a better chance at life. It's better schools, safer environment. She knew we moved out here for her sake. And so, if she'd never been born, we wouldn't have moved out here. I wouldn't have gotten sick, right?
Mm.
So it's that connecting the dots of, well, we move out here, Mom gets sick. So we moved out here because of me, so it's got to be my fault.
And so, was it her? Did she have religious beliefs then that
No.
like God was punishing you guys? I'm sort of not following that part.
I took the stance of I'll let her make up her own mind when it came to religion. So, we didn't force any kind of religious beliefs on her at all. She thought it was her fault. No religion involved on her end. None at all. But it was just the, connect the dots type of situation. We move out here, Mom gets sick, we move out here for me, my fault.
Yeah, sort of the inherent pattern seeking and the cognitive biases that a lot of young people deal with, false cause in this case, sort of attributing the move to your health, and you wouldn't have had to move had she not been born, therefore it's her fault.
Yep.
I see. And how did that relate to you then wanting to, be done with your religious beliefs? If her belief on that did not have anything to do with religion, how did that translate to you wanting to get rid of religion?
For me, that was my final straw. That was my, I can no longer believe in any kind of benevolent deity. Because if there was one, why would my daughter be wishing herself dead?
I see.
It was the final straw for me. It's I can't believe in any kind of benevolent deity that would allow an innocent child to take that kind of blame on herself.
Yeah. And so, so we talked a little bit about, guys, sort of more the internal part of, our internal ongoing process with this transition. And I want to start again with you, Corey, and talk about what the ongoing process has been like with you as it relates to friends and family and coworkers, because that part of the process is something that we'll probably continue until we die, I think. There's always there's tons of religious people, and a lot of them are completely ignorant and bigoted when it comes to atheism and atheists, and so a lot of people find themselves having to feel like they need to hide it. They can't just freely speak their minds when it comes to their non-belief, and that sort of thing, and we have to constantly, again, sort of justify, if you will, why we don't believe, and that we're moral people and just normal people. We don't eat babies and
You don't.
rape and all of that kind of stuff. Right, I don't. I shouldn't speak for you guys. I know Jesse's into that kind of baby eating stuff, but but Corey, what was it like for you with your ongoing process as you've come out? I mean, I first should ask: is it safe to say that we're all out as atheists, with at least most of our nuclear family? And
yes,
The majority of my family knows I am.
Okay, and Dave?
I certainly don't hide it.
Okay. And so, Corey, what's the ongoing process been like for you with friends, family, and coworkers?
Well, coworkers I don't really much worry about because I'm an over-the-road truck driver, so I really don't have coworkers except for my dispatcher.
Right on.
Um, as far as friends and family, my family's actually been very accepting of it. They may not be too happy about it, but they don't shun me. I'm not the black sheep of the family just because I'm an atheist in an Italian Catholic family, which is odd, actually. Now that I
Yeah,
think
that's
about
good.
it. Anyway, friends, I came to grips a long time ago that I'm going to lose friends. Um, I've lost a lot of good friends, mainly my friend since middle school, David. I lost him a while back, and a lot of others because people, like you said, are just not accepting of it. They think we're, heathens. They think we're amoral. They think we're, you know, controlled by the devil and all that fun stuff. And it's as far as being out and open about it. I mean, I think the page that I run pretty much speaks for itself. I mean, if someone asks me, I'll tell them I'm an atheist. I have no shame in regards to it. I have bumper stickers on the side of my tractor here saying "Proud Atheist." And trucking is an extremely religious profession, so I get really dirty looks a lot, especially wearing atheist shirts around the truck stop, which I have
Yeah.
about 6 of them, and I wear them a lot.
And a
So,
lot of truck stops have a little church.
oh yes, I see that a lot. But I mean, I've kind of grown numb to losing people. I mean, and it's given me a very callous outlook on theists um, in the long run. But it's been painful. But I mean, shit happens. I mean, you're gonna lose friends over religion.
Yeah.
People lose their lives over it. So what's a few friends?
And sort of a related question that I will also want to ask all of you guys as we go down is Corey, have you ever found that you've sort of, sorry, my phone started talking randomly. Hold on, let me turn this down. Have you? You said you've grown kind of callous with theists who have, stopped being your friend or thought less of you, that sort of thing.
No. Let me stop you there.
Okay. Sure.
Not specifically towards the people who have shunned me, just towards all theists, and that is just a small example. I mean, when I say calloused, I mean I think they're feeble-minded, they're ignorant, they have a lack of capacity for any kind of intelligent thought or reasoning. Pretty much to me, and I'm talking about the theists that are like speaking in tongues and oh Jesus, those are the people who, to me, are mindless drones. They're pawns. They're walking wastes of oxygen. And that's what I meant by that. I wasn't meant. I didn't mean that. I mean, I still consider David like a brother. I mean, it's not specifically towards people who have shunned me. I mean, that's their religion telling them to do that, not them. So.
Now, would you say that's the same? This is sort of not the question I was going to ask a minute ago, but would you say, because that sounds kind of like a universal or blanket statement to me about theists, and would you apply that also to theists who are scientists, perhaps? Like 3% of the National Academy of Scientists are theists, and so it's not like theists are incapable of having a rational thought of any kind. It's sort of just otherwise intelligent, and this is sort of compartmentalized. Their religious beliefs are kind of compartmentalized from it.
Well, when it comes to I mean, like I said, I don't think that about all theists. It's just those kind of fundamentalists, like everything for Jesus, like tithing, go to church every day that the church is fucking open, kind of theists. Like my girlfriend's mother, she's like that. Anyway,
So
I totally understand the frustration, but the way I try to look at it is that they're victims. I try not to blame victims.
Yeah.
That's good. I like that. But as far as like you said, Christian scientists or religious scientists, to me, I mean, yeah, they're obviously smart if they're in that field and they're recognized as scientists and they have doctorates or whatever, however the hell you pronounce that. I don't know. I don't have one, so I can't pronounce it apparently.
Yeah, and just to clarify, not Christian scientists like the
No.
Christian, but like
Scientists who happen to be
Christians.
Scientists who are also Christians. To
That's
me,
right,
I don't
that's
understand how you can have such a knowledge base of the universe or whatever their specific sect is, whether it be geology, astronomy, yada yada yada, physics, all that fun stuff. I don't understand how you can have that much of an understanding of how things actually are and still believe,
Right.
the exact opposite of what is found in the Bible. I don't get how people can do that.
Well, the
I mean-
Catholic Church accepts evolution as fact, but
Yeah.
even though that negates the whole concept of the Garden of Eden and original sin, they still accept it.
And
Hey,
so
if they want to believe in the incestuous family of Adam and Eve, let them. I mean, they're pretty much saying it's okay to fuck your sister. I mean, no wonder why people in the South are so religious. I come from the South, so it's okay.
So from the comment stream, Viper was saying that she lost her sister over becoming an out atheist, and that sucks.
And so I do want to get to my question right quick with Corey before we move on to Dave.
I still didn't answer the question.
Well, I haven't asked it
Oh.
yet. So. the question that I really wanted to ask is, even though some people who are theists have unfriended you, in real life, I'm sure on Facebook too, treated you poorly because you are out as a non-believer. Have you also done that to theists? Have you stopped talking to people just because they, believe in God?
No, I still try to call David every once in a while, see how he's doing. I still try to talk to even the people that I used to go to church with. I mean, I used to play the drums in the youth band, and I still talk to some of the musicians that were there. I still talk to a lot of the friends that I had made, even though, I still have that outlook towards them. I mean, and as far as that outlook goes, I mean, I think that way about my family too. I mean, I don't discriminate based on, because my mother's just like, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. And, I tell her, I mean, this is how I think about you, Mother. I still love you, but, you need to, stop being so damn ignorant. And I don't talk to her like that. I mean, you kiss your mother with that mouth. But, I mean, I love my mother. I'll do anything for my mother, but I don't discriminate just because I know someone. I don't think differently as far as my outlook towards theists in general than I do with my family.
Yeah, the truth doesn't play favorites.
Exactly. So, but that wasn't really answering your question. I actually did I answer your question?
Yeah, I think that was pretty much, I think
I
good
had
enough.
too much sugar.
That's okay. So
There's
Dave.
no such thing as too much sugar.
Yeah.
Dave, so what was your experience like as you were, this ongoing process of non-belief with friends, family, and coworkers?
It's been relatively okay. I haven't lost too many friends at all. I lost a few friends on Facebook. It's been relatively painless for me, but the one friend I lost was an interesting story because they were posting about a friend of theirs who their daughter was going through a medical issue, and they were asking for prayers and support, and I didn't have prayers to give them because I don't believe there's anybody to pray to. So I was giving them support. I was encouraging them. I was giving them whatever I could, right? And at the end of about 2 weeks of this, a roller coaster of medical issues. She says her friend's daughter is now on the road to recovery. She's going to be all good, and said, "Thank you, Jesus." And it was like literally ignored the hospital that she was in, ignored the doctors that treated her, ignored the medical science that treated her, ignored all of that, and just gave all of the credit to Jesus. And I said, how about thanking medical science first? How about thanking the people that helped her first? And then if you want to thank Jesus, go ahead. And she basically turned around and said, well, I'm a believer, and if that's not good enough for you, I'm going to, and gave up on me and unfriended me. And I just couldn't believe that. It was, what are you doing? I supported you through this time that you were having a problem and everything else like that. And then all I say is maybe you should give some credit to the scientists. That's too much.
There's actually a video that reminded me of a video by Dark Matter 2525 that involves the rejection of other people's faith and how, and it kind of explains how they take it as a, you know, kind of like, say, Jesse, if I was to ask you out and you rejected me, kind of like the same thing as far as seeing that personal God as part of the id or the ego in your mind, and by someone rejecting that, you kind of take it personally and you lash out, and that's just
because they
it just reminded me
who they are around their religious beliefs.
Yeah, what Dave said pretty much hit it right there, and it reminded me of that video. So if any viewer wants to go look up that video, I forget what it's called, but if you go to his YouTube channel, I'm sure you can find it over the dozens and dozens of videos he has.
You know, a lot of religions talk about, you know, giving up self, you know, become like a child, become like a sheep, you know, submit. And so really a lot of what it is trying to get rid of self in a sense. And the ideal is this, you know, conformity to some nebulous concept, some nebulous idealistic concept that really is impossible, you know, this
a lack of personal identity.
Yeah, I mean, that's where we get a lot of the social conservatives and stuff. You know, anything non-normative behavior or styles of dress, you know, these things are all bad, you know, and evil in some cases, you know, influenced by Satan, right? A woman's wearing a long skirt, I can see your ankles, oh, the devil did it, you know, it's just nonsense like that. But you're getting rid of yourself and you're almost essentially becoming the religion. You identify it. I am a Christian. You know, not I subscribe to the Christian faith or I follow Christianity or something like that. I am Christian. I am a Muslim.
It subverts your entire identity.
And so it's easy to see how a lot of people would take that as a personal attack, you know, on their, you know, personhood, on their identity, when you say, hey, these things are ridiculous, you know. It's easy to understand where that might come
That was
from.
my reaction, is because I didn't even say that. I said, you know, go ahead and give thanks to whoever you want. Just give thanks to who you know helped this child first.
Right. Right.
Well, maybe in their mind they were thinking, you know, without Jesus, that doctor wouldn't have gone to school, and, you know, everything wouldn't have been in place for that person without Jesus. And Jesus, and
God
Jesus, and Jesus.
brought them into my life. That's why.
Yeah.
God brought that doctor, you know. That doctor, God was working through them, and that's why my child is healed.
Yeah. Right.
I'm pretty sure that doctor just wanted to fucking go to school to be a fucking doctor.
Yeah.
Pretty sure it didn't have anything to do with Jesus.
Yeah, that's one of the events in my life that made me really realize that just our existing is a threat to them.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think a lot of theists are afraid, in a sense. They kind of despise us or hate us or fear us, you know, because they're afraid we're right. And that
I think it really comes down to fear.
They've invested, you know, their money, their time, their lifestyle, perhaps, you know, their whole worldview is encompassed in their religious beliefs. And if atheists are right, you know, so to speak, that their religious claims are unfounded, then it just frightens them. What do? Who am I? You know, it's like a existential identity crisis at that point, because they have been just so subverted by their religious beliefs. They're almost not even a person anymore, in a sense. I mean, especially the people who are real fundamentalists into the stuff. I mean, not just the kind of people who are, you know, cultural Muslims or cultural Christians or whatever, that like, yeah, I kind of believe there's Jesus or whatever. I don't really go to church, and, you know, I don't know tenets or anything like that, but, you know, God is love. And, you know, not so much those people, but the people who really, really identify. I think that's a pretty heavy load I think
What
that's
happened
what
with you, Ryan?
I like. And so for me, in the process of transitioning out, it's been kind of hit or miss. I think I've been very fortunate with most of my friends and family have been very understanding with my disbelief, even though I don't hide it. I'm quite vocal about it. Do a lot of different stuff online, and shows like this and others where I speak about it, publicly and openly. If somebody wants to talk about it in the grocery store, as I have had a few months ago, somebody tried to convert me to Christianity in the meat section of the grocery store. I spent 20 minutes arguing with him, and the dude was pretty nutty. I won't go into that now, but
Wait a second, he was nutty in the meat section.
he was nutty in the meat section.
Am I the only one that took that dirty?
Yeah, I think so.
No.
It didn't get messy.
No.
It didn't get messy. So, but no, I mean, I've been pretty fortunate. I have had some friends and family stop talking with me, unfriend me on Facebook. I've had some religious friends who have sort of like tried to up their religious game on me, try to like come at me with like, throwing Christian punches, so to speak, like whipping out arguments and what about this and this part of the Bible and this part of the Bible, and I just have to say, well, you're also neglecting this part of the Bible, and well, here's where your logic is fallacious, and you're saying this because you have a cognitive bias toward this thing, and just basically argue them. A lot of people, I mean, pretty much everybody that I know that's a theist on Facebook has decided to not argue with me on Facebook anymore because they know that I'll fucking smack them down.
It's real easy to argue when you have the truth on your side.
Yeah, when you have evidence and sound valid logic, I mean, it's not very difficult. And so I have been disappointed, I would say, with some friends and family that I've known for some time, members of the former church that I most recently attended, kind of giving me the cold shoulder, not so much like unfriending me or get out of my life, but it's kind of hard to be concise and put into a capsule, but just, it's sort of like when you're interested in considering about their religion, they want to be all warm and friendly and helpful and come on in, let's do this stuff together and let's hang out, and here's the Jesus and here's the Bible, let's study, let's talk about it, let's go and do these things. And then when you are transitioning out of theism, they are either harsh to you, give you the cold shoulder, don't want to have anything to do with you. It's just the other side. It's kind of like they're a con man who sees a mark. They're trying to warm you up to the religion and bring you all in. They're being all warm and inviting and friendly when they think they can get you to Jesus.
When I was a teenager.
When they see that you're coming to reason and no longer are susceptible to their lines of bullshit, they just want to get away. They're not nice and friendly and warm anymore. I think they are warm and friendly people, but something changes that they start treating you a lot differently. Is one thing that I've noticed, that I've been disappointed with many of the theists that I know, because some of them are friends and family, people that I've known for many years, and that's really disappointing when we talk about it. Religion is divisive. I mean, look at what happens. I don't believe your fairy tales anymore, and so now you don't want to have anything to do with me just because I have a different answer to the God question than you do.
Yeah.
And if I don't think that it would be quite the same either if say I converted to Islam. If I still had some kind of God beliefs, I don't think that they would give me as much of a cold shoulder.
Well, because it's less frightening to them, because you at least still have some kind of belief.
Yeah, it's...
Even if it's not the one they think you should, you at least believe in something.
Right. Right, and you're not talking about like evidence and these other things. Still, you're still like comparing apples and apples. You know, faith against
Yeah.
faith, opinion versus opinion. You're not trying to, you know, when it comes to non-belief, most atheists, I think it's fair to say, they're trying to put their opinion, their faith, up to the same level as your logic and your evidence,
Yeah.
and it just doesn't work that way. But when it's faith and faith, it's kind of more of an eye-to-eye thing, and so I think it's more easier for them to understand it. You still at least believe in some God, or I don't really know, but there seems to be some kind of a difference there. Um, so I don't know. I think that it's been, definitely hurtful at some points for me with different theists, and I would say like with you, Corey, it has caused me to be a little bit callous. I wouldn't say with all theists, but just generally, if somebody wants to not talk to me now just because I don't believe in their fairy tales, it's like, yeah, it kind of hurts, but it doesn't really hurt as much as it used to, because it's like, I think it reflects more on them, who they are as a person, than me, because from my perspective, and maybe you guys could tell me if this has been the case with you too, is I've transitioned out of theism. I've actually become a more moral person, a more reasonable and rational person, and I think just a better person overall as I've transitioned out of theism. And so the difference is not
because
me
you
as a
recognize that
person.
you're responsible for your actions.
Yeah, that's part of it. And you don't have the loophole anymore of, well, I can pray to Jesus. I don't have to pay attention to not fuck up. I don't have to try to avoid,
I can
doing
ask for
wrong things quite
forgiveness.
as hard, because, and I don't have to have as much responsibility on myself to try to do the right thing either, because if it's meant to be, if God wills it, it's going to happen. I don't need to do it. It's going to happen. God's going to take care of it. So I feel there is a lot more personal responsibility when it comes to both the positive and the negative, for me. But Jesse, what's your experience been? Friends, family, coworkers, and your...
As for the family that would have turned on me, I didn't really talk to them much anyway because they were all conservative Republicans. But majority of my friends and family, like my immediate family, my siblings, my mom, my in-laws, they're all fine with it. The only people that don't know would be my husband's grandparents, because they're conservative Republicans and they watch Fox News, and so yeah, we don't tell them. But I did lose a very good friend, someone who'd been one of my best friends for probably almost 10 years at that point, over posting a video about evolution, and she took it as a personal attack, and we spent 2 or 3 days going back and forth on that post on my wall. Nobody tagged in it, nothing, of her telling me I was persecuting her because I didn't realize she was a young earth creationist. And she kept going and kept going and kept going and kept going until I unfriended her because she wouldn't do it herself, because she obviously didn't want to accept that it wasn't aimed at her, and kept telling me that I wasn't allowed to post the truth. To the point where she even, explained how, she was teaching her daughter how to pass your silly science tests, but I'm also teaching her what the truth is.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, and she'd been one of my best friends for almost 10 years. I stood by her when she got religion. I was one of like 3 of her friends that didn't completely flip out on her or turn their back on her when she became religious. But I deconvert and start talking about, and it's not even a deconversion aspect in that case, it's the saying that evolution is true. that killed our friendship.
Hmm.
But other than that, I mean, I haven't really had any really bad experiences other than that. I actually had an interesting one at the grocery store today because we were getting in the car to head home, and this young girl runs over and she says, "Are you wearing Vibrams, my toe shoes?" And I said yes, and she fist pump. And then her mom came over and talked to us too because they liked the Vibram shoes that we have, and she asked where we live and whatnot. And we were just BSing, and she asked me what church I go to, and we're not really blatant about it around here because of where we live. Just, yeah, no stickers on the car because we
Yeah.
can't afford to fix it if something happens to it. But it was the way she asked made me feel comfortable saying, no, I'm an atheist. She says, well, do you go to any of the churches there, or or is that not your thing? It's fine if it's not. And I said, no, actually, we're atheists. And she just, okay. And we just kept talking. And so I'm like, yes, that was cool.
Yeah.
I didn't get anybody freaking out on me.
So we're about to go to break. Corey wants to tease us with something that he wants to get back to right after the break. What have you got for us, Corey?
Oh, I just wanted to say something real quick. We actually have a troll in the comments for the thingy, and they spelled avenging wrong, which I'd like to point out. And two, whoever you are, Avenging Angel, if you're still watching this, it's not on us to provide evidence that your Bible is false. It's on you to provide evidence that it's true. The burden of proof is on religion and the theists that believe in it, not on us.
That is absolutely correct, and a perfect note to take our intermission break. We're about 6 minutes over. We're 8 minutes after 6 minutes after 8 p.m. here Eastern Standard Time. We're going to take about a 10-minute break now. So go ahead and use the bathroom, folks. Get yourself something else to drink, some popcorn, whatever you want to do. We're going to take a 10-minute break, and we'll be right back and jump right into this conversation. Hope you're enjoying it, and we'll see you in about 10 minutes.
Oi! Hell yeah, intermission music for the win, motherfucker.
Always look on the bright side of life.
Hey, how do you guys get your little pictures up there instead of your video feed? Wait, hold on. Hey! Yeah. Sweet, I need to change that picture.
Hey everybody, we're about to get back to the second half of the show here. We'll just give the other panelists another minute or two to get back to their seats. And we'll wait for Jessie before we get started. Sure she'll be just a moment. Want to first thank Mizu Megami-sama, Viper4382, Ethan Owens, and sure, we'll even thank the Avenging Angel for stopping by, and we thank you all for watching the show and joining us and participating in the chat.
Why don't we kick it right over to Corey for the Avenging Angel?
Now that we're back, the second half of The Mind of an Atheist, I wanted to remind you that we are coming to you live, and you can also add your questions or comments in the chat under the live stream. Just please keep in mind that sometimes the comments are on a bit of a delay, so they might not get to us right away, but please submit them and we'll get to them as soon as possible. I'm Ryan from Hammer the Gods. On tonight's panel, we also have Jesse from Coping with Illness and Disability Without Faith. We've got Dave from Hammer the Gods, and we've got
Cheers.
Corey from Militant Atheism. So tonight we're talking about our personal deconversion stories and experiences and new atheist tips and just sort of surrounding issues in the hopes that other viewers watching will identify with some aspects of it, get their mind going, whether they're doubters or theists or agnostics or atheists, deists, whatever you might be, or just you have a loved one who fits one of those categories, those self-labels, if you will. That this will give you a little bit of insight, hopefully, into what experiences they're going through, what you might be able to expect as you're dealing with this transition, and hopefully, maybe give you some tips to make that transition more smooth for you. So right before we left, Corey was talking about mentioning to Avenging Angel in the chat about the burden of proof being on the theists, which is absolutely correct. And I think, Corey, you had something more that you wanted to say on that?
Actually, that was kind of it. I just wanted to, I mean, for one, we don't have to disprove your God. We don't have to disprove your Bible, your holy book, your holy texts. That's not on us. I mean, that's like me coming to you and saying, I can fly. Of course you're not going to believe it. You're going to say, well, prove it. No, and I'm going to look at you and say, no, you prove that I can fly. It's the same exact fucking thing. You can't do it. You propose something exists. You must go through the correct scientific method to provide evidence that it does exist.
Atheism itself is not a claim. It's a rejection of a claim.
Exactly. You can't just say, hey, this exists because it's in this book. Well, by that logic, I can turn to Anne Rice books and say, hey, vampires exist because it's right there in those books. And, of course, I don't use Twilight because Twilight sucks, but,
No. Harry Potter.
Or Harry Potter, same thing. Wizards
wizard.
exist. Magic exists because it's in the Harry Potter books. If the Harry Potter books were written 2,000 years ago, people might actually believe that shit.
2,000 years from now?
If you can't prove to me that Harry Potter doesn't exist, then Harry Potter does exist.
Exactly.
Hogwarts witnesses.
Which is hopefully clearly demonstrates how absurd the shifting of the burden of proof is. You don't go into court and be like,
do that on Halloween.
you don't go into court and hear you're guilty unless you can prove you're innocent. It's you're innocent unless you're proven guilty. It's the same principle.
Now on, everybody dresses up like Hogwarts characters and goes door knocking. Have you heard the good news of Harry Potter lately? Give me candy.
So let's jump right back in here. I was referencing earlier an article that David G. McAfee wrote for the Richard Dawkins Foundation for Reason and Science website. The article is called 7 Tips for Coming Out as an Atheist. And we've been touching on this a couple times here, and I'll just give his book another plug because I think it's really good and really helpful. It's Mom, Dad, I'm an Atheist, The Guide to Coming Out as a Non-Believer. The book should be available at Amazon and other places, and I believe it was Dogma Debate that also did an audio version of the book that you should be able to find on iTunes and Audible.com. But on point 4 here in this article on the richarddawkins.net website, he talks about if you are from a strict religious family, find someone to confide in. It says some relatives and close friends might be more understanding than others. It is advisable to seek those people out for starters. You may want to test the waters in this regard by casually bringing up the topic of God and or religion to those people closest to you whose religious preferences are unknown to you or you imagine might be sympathetic to your cause. It is not the case that all believers will condemn you. There are many open-minded believers who will not see your atheism as inherently bad or offensive. Sometimes you will be surprised to find that people you have known your entire life and have assumed to be religious are in fact skeptics or unconcerned with divine matters altogether. This can be a welcoming initial interaction for those who may be scared of judgmental reactions and stressed personal relationships with fundamentalists in the family. And I want to go to you, Corey. We'll go left to right again here. When you were dealing with your periods of doubt and transitioning through that, month and a half so phase, I think you said, to the point where you came to your position of non-belief, did you have somebody that you were able to confide in and sort of test the waters, just explore these ideas with?
I just came out. I didn't really feel the need to confide or anything. I mean, it was my belief. Why should people look down on me for something I believed? And I gradually learned that, hey, like, people do that everywhere. So, I mean, I just kind of came out with it and said, I even told my pastor, hey, I don't believe this shit anymore, dude. And he's like, oh, Satan has taken hold of you. I can clearly see that. I'm sorry I cannot talk to you anymore. And I'm like, wow, what a fucking pastor you are, douchebag. But, I mean, my mother, my mother really doesn't care.
At least he made it clear.
Yeah. My mother really doesn't care. As far as the rest of my family, like I said, I mean, there's nothing really to hide around the people that I care about.
So it sounds like you really didn't feel like there was a need for finding somebody to confide in. You didn't go through a period where you were feeling alone or, didn't know that other atheists exist, as some atheists deal with as they're leaving religion. You didn't deal with that.
I actually reached out to a few atheist groups around where I call home. One was very uninviting. I'm not going to say it on here out of respect for other atheists, but they were just total assholes. And that kind of put a sour taste on my tongue as far as atheists went. And then I just, started reaching out and out and out, and it turns out that my tattoo artist at the time was a militant atheist, and he even said he was a militant atheist. And that kind of gave me the confidence, more so than I already had, to speak out against religion. And there's a dog.
My beagle.
Yeah, and I'd like to also point out quickly that, atheism, those aren't dirty words. When theists like to throw that around at us like it's something negative. And, point out to them that, out of all the gods claimed to exist throughout history, they are almost as atheistic as we are. They just give special privilege to one, or, if you want to call Christianity 3 gods, however you want to put it, they give special exemption. They give special exemption from the demands of skepticism and logic and evidence.
And pagans in the audience give it to a bunch of other gods.
Yeah, and we don't give that special exemption to any gods. They give it to one or a handful, or whatever the case may be for that person. And we don't give that exemption to any god. So they are almost as atheistic as we are. 99.9% as atheistic as we are. But Dave, so in your transition, did you find it necessary to try to confide in anyone? Did you feel alone? Did you know other atheists?
I knew one more of a firebrand atheist than I was at the time, and he was the kind of friend he was the most intelligent person I knew, and Jamie McPherson is the guy I'm talking about, and he's an amazing friend of mine, and I learned so much from him when I'm talking to him. I never spend any time alone talking with the guy and forget to learn something. I always learn something from him. And he was the most atheist person I knew, and so it was comforting to have somebody I could talk to that way. But I never really felt the need like I had to have somebody to talk to. I got a lot from online. I talked to people online, I joined a lot of atheist groups. And I think I went through what every atheist goes through when they realize they've been lied to their whole life. They get angry. I got angry for a while. And
Yeah.
I'm not so much angry now as I just want people to stop using their lies to bully others. I only push back against people who push their crap.
Yeah, I think it was Matt Dillahunty of the Atheist Experience who sort of made the comparison of it's kind of like when you've been brought up through religion and you leave religion, some people have a sense of loss, but it's almost like realizing that you've lived the first part of your life thinking that you had, $1 million trust fund waiting for you when you turned a certain age, and then you get to that age and realize that it never existed. There might be this sense of loss at first, like I was lied to, I was cheated out of something that this thing that was maybe I thought was grand was going to be excellent, and then you sort of get past that and come to the realization, well, that trust fund never really existed, and so there is a lot of anger, I think, that a lot of people experience, and I think that a lot of it comes from not only being lied to, but I think Corey mentioned this earlier, that you feel like a chunk, maybe a significant part of your life has kind of been stolen from you. That some people live, uh, kill, and die in the name of their God and religion. And when you realize that all of that is illusory, that can throw some people through a loop, and it can cause some people to be distraught or be angry, and perhaps for good reason. That's one good reason, if you're dealing with issues like that it is good to try to reach out to somebody that you can confide in, whether it's maybe a closed or secret Facebook group, or if you're not worried about your friends or family doing stalker settings and seeing you comment on a page or something, go ahead and just go to any of the number of pages out there. Coping with Illness and Disability Without Faith is a great one. Hammer the Gods, Militant Atheism, United Atheists of America. There's tons of them out there.
Has a closed group to go with it, so that
Yep.
To avoid the stalker settings. There's actually
that's right.
Page members that requested, because their family members were following them to the page, to chew them out not relying on God to get them through their illness.
Yep. If you have are in a position where you want to discuss your doubts, Coping with Illness and Disability Without Faith is, as the name suggests, a little bit more niche into that. But you can also, just if you're concerned about privacy and friends or family following you around on Facebook and jumping your shit for expressing your doubts or your disbelief, go to the Coping with Illness and Disability Without Faith page, message the page. They won't be able to see that you're doing that, and just ask about the closed group. At which point you can be invited in and have a safe place to discuss the issues, whatever you're dealing with. And I have been an admin there for a while, and it's a mixed group of people. Atheist is a mixed group, but it is a safe environment, and you're welcome to discuss anything there that concerns coping.
Don't be a dick.
Yeah, pretty much, pretty simple stuff. But find somebody to confide in. I think is a big part. And sort of to continue on to the discussion, for me, I think that it would have been helpful if I had somebody to more directly discuss my doubts and these sorts of issues with. As it turns out, I'd been on Facebook for a long time, And when I was a theist, I didn't even realize that there was, all of this plethora of atheist pages out there. I didn't even realize it. Until one day I started searching around, found this little podunk, discussion, atheist versus religion discussion page, and started participating there when I was still sort of on the edge, I guess you could say, of belief and disbelief, and started sort of arguing for both sides. I would make arguments in favor, see how people responded, make arguments against, see how people responded. I ended up, started contributing content. Eventually, I got invited to be an admin there, for the atheism side, so to speak. And, long story short, I ended up starting Hammer the Gods, and have been, by the time I started Hammer the Gods, it was several months in, and I had, already pretty much come to my current position of, firebrand atheism. And so I've been, still exploring the ideas, but firmly on the disbelief side, and firmly in the position that, and I think there's plentiful evidence to show that this is the case, and that's why I hold this position, that religion does far more harm than good, and it's all based on claims that are demonstrably untrue or can't be proven to be true. So that's the position that I currently hold.
And now you
But
have
Jesse,
millions to confide in.
and now I have tons of people that, a lot of people. I don't
They're
use
little
my
and
name
yellow,
Ryan.
and some of them only have one eye.
I just use that squiggly line @ squiggly line on my pages, because that's how my little handle that I started using. Most people don't know that's me, so I can kind of confide without disclosing my identity. But if people wanted to really look me up, they'd find me here and other places and know who I am. But it's, I can kind of confide in people doing that. Test ideas out, throw stuff out there, see what sticks, see why it's a good or bad idea. And just go from there. So, I've learned a lot from just being able to network with a lot of cool people on Facebook and other, websites. And you don't have to limit yourself, viewers, either to Facebook. There's a lot of different atheists and secular related websites out on the web that have forums and other things like that you can get into. And just confide in people. Sometimes it's better if you don't know them. You can speak more freely. But also, go on Meetup, meetup.com, and look if there's any atheist or secular groups in your area. It can give you a sense of community, that you're not alone. Be able to talk to some people who are of similar mind, and express some of your ideas there. Look into that. But Jesse, I wanted to get to you on this question of, did you feel it necessary to, you made that transition overnight, essentially, as you said, but did you feel at any point that it was necessary to confide in? I mean, the reason you started Coping with Illness and Disability Without Faith is because you felt like there was a big gap there, for people that didn't really,
We didn't have
I don't know. You go ahead.
Place.
You tell me.
Well, I got lucky with my deconversion that my husband essentially deconverted with me. And so I had my support sitting in the living room. But what I ended up doing was a Facebook search for the word atheist. And, I went through and I liked every single page that said atheist. And so, I get all this content running through my feed all the time, and I know that's how I found Hammer and anti-theism. And when I learned what anti-theism was, I'm like, hey, I've been this my whole life and didn't even realize there was a name for it. But I found links, for American Heathens Radio, and that's what really did it for me, because that's how I found you, Ryan, and that's how I found Liza, and so many other awesome, wonderful people from listening to the American Heathen's radio program and getting in the chat on there and just talking to everybody. And I'm like, oh, I'm not alone. I'm not alone. And, you know, it was the day that you and I were talking and you told me that I needed to make my own page. I'm sitting here going, what should I make? Hey, you know what? Every single support group I've pulled up for an illness, you know, for dealing with chronic illness and disability, it's all focused on religion. I could never find one that wasn't just, you know, pray. Pray about it. God will fix it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And,
just not being alone
a year
helps.
and a half later, and you know, here we are. I've got coping, and I help out with a lot of other pages now. I think I admin on 18 different pages at this point. And I've found a wonderful community, and I've made some absolutely amazing friends. And I wouldn't have been able to without the internet, because the nearest meetup for me is 2 hours away. And I can't physically or monetarily get to it.
Sure.
So all of my friends live in my computer.
Yeah.
I love my computer. It's where my friends live.
That is a trick for a lot of people that, you know, especially if you live in a more rural area or, you know, not near a metropolitan area, that there may not be many options for a person-to-person, you know, sort of group type meetup thing. And you know, that's one great thing about doing all of the social networking sites and different websites that you can use is to build
a Google Hangouts.
And Google Hangouts. That's also a really good tool. You know, for viewers, you know, we're using the G+, you know, Google Hangouts to broadcast this show to you right now. But if you're not familiar with it, look up Google Hangouts. And you can use this to have people, up to 10 people, get in. It's basically like Skype, you know, up to 10 people from anywhere in the world who has the right equipment to do so, and a G+ account, basically a webcam, a mic, headphones recommended, and a G+ account.
You don't need a webcam or a mic.
Yeah, you don't have to. It's a little more nice to be able to see and hear.
You're not limited by it, because there's still there's a chat option in
That's
it.
right.
So even if you haven't had the chance to get a webcam or a microphone, you can still, you know, see who it is you've been conversing with this whole time. Even if they can't see you yet, you can still actively communicate.
Yeah. And I've found it to be a really nice tool as well, because you can link up with people who are, you know, all over the world, who are in different stages of disbelief. You know, maybe they've never been a theist, maybe they're still a theist, just transitioning out, maybe they're agnostic. You know, all different, you know, along the spectrum of answers to the God question, I guess you could say. And in all different cultures and places, that you can get a lot of different interesting things and have a lot of interesting discussions with people that I have found to be really helpful. And we've talked about the difficulties, some of the difficulties of this transitioning out, and another one of these is that a lot of religious people have trouble escaping religion, because not only the fear, or you know, the fear of hell perhaps, or the hope that they will be able to see their friends or family again in the afterlife, they have a hard time letting go of that. But also another one is that a lot of people get a sense of community out of their religious traditions. You know, weekly church services, different types of events, you know, vacation Bible study, whatever it might be, they get a sense of community. And a lot of people do get ostracized in many cases. They sort of are shunned, or if nothing else, because they don't believe it anymore, they don't feel, either they feel unwelcome, or they just don't feel like they want to participate in these events and be surrounded with all of this nonsense that they don't believe in. So they kind of have trouble getting out because they don't want to leave, that sense of community behind. There are different things, as we mentioned, the online communities and meetups. Some people like to do the Unitarian Universalist kind of church sort of thing for a while. A lot of them are welcoming to non-believers. There are in New York. I'm forgetting it's not called a church. It's a Sunday. Crap! I'm totally
Sunday
missing.
Assembly.
Sunday Assembly. Thank you, Dave.
It started in the UK and now it's in New York. It's they've had 2 gatherings, I think it is.
Yes, and so if you want to call it a church, fine. If you don't, I think it's silly either way. But it's people of similar minds who get together and talk about interesting things and talk about evolution, philosophy, whatever kinds of things. I don't know, all sorts of different things.
If you're going to call it a church, it's the only one I know that happens in a bar.
Yeah, I mean, you can have beer if you're into that thing, But my point being is that don't let the perceived lack of community dissuade you from,
It's
sort of
coming.
forcing yourself into having to stay into some religious sort of cloistered up space that you don't believe anymore. There are other options.
I'll actually go even further. I'll actually go even further than to say, don't just think that that'll hold you back. If you're in a church right now and you're not a believer, please come out and make a fellowship. Please come out and make a group. We need people in atheism who are willing to organize. And
absolutely.
Because there's so many people who think, well, I just can't have this community unless I'm in the church, and that's just not true.
Yeah.
The church made the community so that people would feel belonging. We can do the same thing without a church.
Yeah, if there's not something in your area, start one. It might be some work and effort, but if that's something that you feel you need, there should be nothing to stop you from starting it, because I can almost guarantee you that if you are living somewhere where there is nothing around to give you that sense of community, there are also people around there, you're just unaware of them, that are also having those exact same feelings, that they are looking for something around to give them that sense of community that also is compatible with their disbelief. And it just takes 1 or 2 people to get together and start the ball rolling in an area that doesn't have it, and you'll see people come out of the woodwork.
You're going to get a lower percentage.
There's also Google Hangouts.
Yep.
Set up a weekly hangout where you just get together online.
Yeah, the one thing to keep in mind if you're going to try and set up some kind of an assembly for atheists is you're probably going to get a lower percentage, because people who believe in gods and that are used to an authoritarian structure, being told what to believe, being told when to show up. Atheists are like herding cats, so you're going to get less percentage, but there's definitely people out there who don't believe in gods who want community.
That's why you need to bring catnip.
That's why.
Potlucks, stuff like that. Let's get together at a park or a private residence or something. Everybody bring their own food and beer, and if you drink, whatever the case may be, and just hang out for a few hours. And if you want to talk about religion or not, fine. It's sort of a free thought thing. The ones that I've been to is sort of a free thought thing. You just get to know who's in your area, discuss whatever comes up. It's a good time. I've enjoyed it.
It's coming.
Actually, Ryan, I kind of meant that literally.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch what you said.
The catnip.
Oh, bring catnip.
Joke. Yeah.
It's true. The more you have, the more atheists will come, because apparently we're cats. So I want to touch on another point here, guys. Is about in this tips for coming out as an atheist is debunking atheist myths.
Yes.
I think is an important part of it, and just being yourself and being out. as a non-believer, in most cases, I would say, helps to debunk a lot of the myths that go along with, you know, how atheists act or whatever. For example, this is a personal anecdote. There's a convenience store not too far away from where I live, and the very first time I had gone in there, you know, probably a dozen times, and the people there got to know me shortly after I moved here, and started being very congenial with me and very, you know, pleasant, and got to know my name and things like that. And the very first time I went in there wearing my United Atheists of America shirt, the one woman sort of, I could tell she kind of seemed spooked. She quieted real down, you know, and seemed very cautious, kind of timid all of a sudden. And that lasted for the next one or two times that I was in there. But I just kept being myself with her, and, you know, didn't start. I noticed her reaction, but didn't react to her reaction. I just treated her the same as I had before, and she came around to the point where now she is much more pleasant and nice with me than she was previous to realizing that I was a non-believer. There was one time where, you know, I needed a pack of cigarettes, and she's, you know, they're behind the other counter. There's the register, and behind the counter were the smokes, and she was at a different counter, and she said, "Yeah, just go back there and grab what you need." You know, trusted me to go behind the register, behind the counter, and grab my smokes, and that was a pretty big step, I thought, with her trusting me after that stage of her, like, seeming kind of afraid of me after she realized I was a non-believer. And so, you know, just doing good things, being yourself, being a good person, and, you know, not hiding who you are as an atheist, I think helps to debunk the myth, you know, that at least one of them, that we're immoral. I think another one is that there are so few of us, we're rare. You know, the more of us come out, the more political power we have, the more social power we have, the more accepted we become. I mean, we can take a page from the LGBT movement, just with the exposure effect. I'm sorry?
Come out of the closet.
Yeah, well, you know, come out of the closet. It's the exposure effect. Once people realize that, you know, their son is an atheist, or their cousin, or, you know, the guy who works at the store, or, you know, whatever it might be, it becomes more normalized. There's less of a stigma there.
It's easier to fear and hate or mistrust somebody that you think is some mysterious entity out there.
Yeah.
That, oh, I never met one, but these atheists really are evil out there. You know, it's easy to hate that. It's not easy to hate the guy who gets you your luncheon meat off of the shelf, or the guy who drives your kid to school, or the girl who drives the taxi cab that takes you to work every day. You can't.
Yeah.
If you can come out, it helps everyone.
I do want to say one thing in response to Ryan. I'm not trying to discredit atheists or anything.
No, sure.
I just want to say that not all atheists are moral.
That's true.
We're not a perfect sect of
no, I agree with that.
Of this social spectrum. I mean, I helped an old lady cross the road once, right? And it's not my fault I didn't see the bus coming.
You pushed her.
Yeah, me pushing her helped my
You're
mom
such a liar.
get the fuck out of the way.
But just like not everybody is nice, not everybody is skeptical, not everybody is moral, regardless of their beliefs or non-beliefs.
That's right.
I've come across a lot of non-skeptical atheists. A lot of them.
I've known an atheist who believes in God, or an atheist, not an atheist, ghost. Sorry.
Ghosts.
You know, atheists are
America's
not.
number one.
Atheists are not.
America's number one.
Atheists are not atheists are not a monolithic, homogeneous group.
No.
You know, and that's
No
part
one
of the
wants that.
benefit, I think, of more people coming out is just, you know, there are negative stereotypes that sometimes, if you're an asshole that happens to be an atheist and you're, you know, out about it, well, you might happen to reinforce some stereotypes.
Yeah.
But in that, you know, the more of us come out, one of the stereotypes that we will be shredding in that as people get exposure to more and more atheists is that we are just people. Among atheists, among people who answer along a spectrum
Hell
to one
yes.
single question, there's a lot of, you know, we are just people. You know, we have good days, we have bad days, we fall in love, we get angry, you know, we sometimes are emotional, you know, sometimes not completely rational, you know, we're not all the most educated, you know, that sort of thing. We have different levels of education and, you know, all of these things. It's, you know, I've come to my definition, my personal definition of atheism is a spectrum of answers to one single question: do gods exist? And everything else is an answer to a different question. And so you've got to keep that in mind, that when somebody says they're an atheist, the only thing that you can be certain about them is that their answer to the God question falls somewhere along the lines of disbelief. There's a spectrum there of, I don't know and I don't care, but I still don't believe, you know, to
me.
I know there is no God and I don't believe there is no God. You know, there's a range in there that sort of loosely would fall under the term atheist.
Now, I want to touch on something from Viper in the comments.
Sure.
I did address it in a comment. There is an atheist mingle on Facebook.
Yes, there is. There's the page and the group.
You know, I was once going to join Christian Mingle just to see if there's an option to select, you know, religion.
And so we're coming up on.
Yeah, your options
about
are yes and hell yes.
We're coming up on about 10 minutes before the end of the show here, so you know, maybe we should just quickly touch on several of the things that we've talked about during the show, and then see if you guys have any final thoughts, and then we'll go ahead and wrap this up.
I have something.
You have something, Dave?
Yeah. Earlier on, you talked about belief and evidence being on the same level or something like that. Faith. I didn't get a chance to address it at the time, but you mentioned that. Today, I had somebody on a Facebook group who was. I was rather strident to them, but the reason I was rather strident to them was because they were saying, well, everybody believes and everybody should respect everybody's belief and stuff like that. I was like, no, respect is earned and religion hasn't earned any.
Yeah.
And she was like, well, you're getting so angry, and I was like, yeah, I'm getting angry because you're putting the most useful and the best thing we've ever found to understanding the universe around us on the same par as fairy tales.
Yeah.
You're putting it on the same level. That is why I'm angry. Yes. And
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. That's kind of what I wanted to get off.
Yeah, and it's worth noting that, you know, for, I would say by and large, most atheists will respect the believer if they are deserving of respect, and whether or not they respect the belief, much in the same way as many Christians would say, you know, hate the sin, love the sinner, we can despise the religion and not the believer.
Or,
you know,
or as I say, respect the believer, mock the belief.
Yeah, and that is the thing. You know, when I mock an idea, when I hammer an idea of some God claim or something, I am not necessarily hammering the person who believes that claim.
Rarely.
You know,
Rarely.
I go out of my way to not make it a personal attack on somebody, to approach the idea and not the individual, and take every theist on a one-to-one basis and not just lump them into the same group. That's not what I would hope they would do as atheists, lump all atheists into the same group. And so I try to treat them in the same fashion. You know,
Well, and it's a
give them
good way to think about it in any kind of discussion or debate is attack the idea, not the person.
That's right.
I do have a final statement as well, and to borrow from Bill Maher in Religulous. I mean, the time for timidity is over. I mean, the time to be a closet atheist is over. Now is the time to stand up for what you believe in. And, you know, I believe what we've discussed today will help a lot of atheists gain the courage to say, hey, I'm an atheist and I'm not afraid anymore. Like we all do.
Yeah.
And once you lose that fear of what other people think and that fear of hell and that fear of judgment, then you will find serenity. And you will find that there is nothing to be afraid of. So I would encourage any and all who see this to come out of the closet, not in the hey kind of way, but you know, stop being timid.
If that's your thing too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if that's your thing too, I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. And,
Oh, and
you
it's
know,
above all, know you're not alone.
exactly, and you
You're
know,
not alone. All of us are here. It's not hard to find people thanks to the internet. I mean, a
Indeed.
simple Google search will pull up tons of websites. Facebook, you go to the search bar and type in the word atheist, and you can select, you know, search under pages or search under groups, and it'll pull up the list. You search atheist, search skeptic, agnostic, anything you can think of. You do a simple search and you can find groups, and in those groups and on those pages you can find other people just like you.
And I would also point out that, you know, and this is a tricky one. I shouldn't say we are necessarily compelled to do so, but I think it is an important aspect of coming out, especially for those of us in the West. As the more developed countries and the more westernized countries become increasingly non-religious, there are still many other places in the world where you can be killed or imprisoned for even doubting or questioning the religion, the common religion, and usually it's in places where Islam is the, you know, state religion or most commonly accepted religion, and it's important for us to come out of those of us who can, where it is safe to do so, because it's sort of a ripple in the pond. We have to start change in the places where change can be most easily made, and that change ripples out to other places. It's a lot harder for someone, say, in Indonesia to do what we do here without having threats against their life or their family or their well-being. You know,
in person and online.
And so it happens here in the U.S., but I think that is important for us to do here for people who cannot speak out, who are either, you know, for whatever reason, unable to do so at this point. Us being able to speak out, I think, helps them in some way.
We have to be the stones that pave the way.
Exactly.
Well, we've got an easier path.
Yep.
And it's not like that outlook on voting, like, hey, my vote doesn't count. I mean, yes, you coming out does count. Every single atheist that does so little as like an atheist page is assisting that move forward, that gaining ground against religion.
Being open on Facebook, suddenly I had friends that had never, ever said anything about being atheist.
Yep.
Start sharing the things I'm posting. Start sharing the memes I make.
Same
like,
here.
Hey, this is exactly what I think, so here you go. I'm going to post this too. I'm like, I brought my friends out.
Yeah, it was a great feeling when I realized, when I started becoming a vocal non-believer on Facebook, to see that there were, you know, probably 5-10 people that I've known for probably 10 plus years.
Yep.
I never really considered their position on religion or God, but come to find out they were non-believers. Like,
And-
wow, that's
we're friendly.
pretty freaking cool. Yeah,
We're friendly. We reach out and say, "Hey, great."
yeah, yeah.
We have
Like,
cookies.
you're there. That's awesome. And so
Oh,
it's just a really great thing.
And you don't just have to be an atheist to be a friend of ours. All you have to be
That's right.
is respect our position. You have to treat us as
Yeah.
equals.
That's right. You know, secular theists, or just even if you're, I have a little bit more tough time with theists who want to, you know, force other people to abide by their religious beliefs. I don't tend to get along with people like that too well. But
That's not who
if
I'm
you're
talking about.
if you're a secular theist or whatever, you know, there are a lot of allies. You know, there are a lot of crossovers between theists and atheists and the LGBT community. You know, there's a lot of crossover in these communities, and you know what we're working for is a more just, equal, peaceful world. And you know, my personal position is that for that to happen, a world without religion is necessary, but is not sufficient. So you know, reaching across lines is a good thing. Educating each other, you know, reaching out to different communities, breaking down barriers, whether it be across political borders or whatnot, is an important aspect to it. So it is time here. We're gonna wrap up here, and I want to thank all of the viewers once again for joining us for this Deconversion Stories and New Atheist Tips episode of The Mind of an Atheist. Once again, I'm Ryan from Hammer the Gods. On tonight's panel, we had Jesse G. From Coping with Illness and Disability Without Faith, Dave, also from Hammer the Gods, and Corey from Militant Atheism. I'd also like to give a shout out to the people in the chat: Viper382, Ethan Owens, who else do we got here? Derek Verveer, hope I'm saying that right. Corey Barber, that's
me.
Yeah, that's you. Mizu Megami-sama, Avenging Angel, and I think we've got some other folks, but that, if I missed you, I do apologize. But thank you all for joining us for the episode and participating in the chat. And we should be on again next week, Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so I hope you will subscribe to the channel here. Also, look for the Mind of an Atheist Facebook page and subscribe to that page, and you'll be sure to be updated with all of the new episodes there. I encourage you to check out all of the pages of the panelists here and like and subscribe to them as well. And with that, we will let you go. We will have a post-show hangout and open it up to any other viewers who want to join us here in the panel and just talk about things that we talked about on the show, ask questions, whatnot, here in the hangout. So,
and play a very dirty game.
maybe we might play Hangouts Against Humanity tonight. And if you've never played that, it's fun and funny. So you might enjoy that. But look for the link to the live hangout to join us here in the panel in the image that probably you found the link here. So where the link you found to the show, we'll put it in the image caption, and you'll be able to get to the live hangout. And so also just to note that when you join in, it will ask you if you mind being broadcast live.
We're just going to go to a different hangout, I think.
Okay, we'll go to a different hangout. You won't have to deal with that. Ignore the last bit I said. We'll post the live link to the caption for the after show hangout. Once again, I'm Ryan. Thank you very much for joining us, everybody.
Love you all.
We'll see you next time.
Later, bitch.